So we have travelled quite a long way from the story of Genesis chapter 3, but I hope by now that you can see that hidden in all the mythology of Adam, Eve and their conversation with the so-called serpent is the irony of the rejection of the Hebrew God. This is very unlikely to have happened if the Hebrew God had been invented. Present-day society has rejected God in the same way and for the same reasons as the metaphorical Adam and Eve did thousands of years ago, because of the increase in knowledge and because God just doesn't fit anywhere in that knowledge. Remember why Adam and Eve ate the so-called fruit in the so-called Garden of Eden. Because of knowledge. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Today we have a growing atheism due to knowledge and scientific discoveries. So is it just a coincidence that the Genesis writer includes wisdom as one of the key elements in this story of the early humans' rejection of God? You could of course argue that knowledge is always better than ignorance, so on this basis the Genesis story doesn't quite make any sense. But I don't think that this is the type of wisdom it means. Think for a moment on how fundamentalism or creationism in religion leads many thousands of people into wrong ideas, which then leads to violence and war on others who don't share those ideas. Obviously we don't have groups of fundamental scientists and atheists leading thousands into war against religion, but there is a growing trend of support for free thinking, free lifestyle, which leads to free and easy personal relationships and virtually unrestrained sexual attitudes, which I believe is going the wrong way and literally leading many thousands of people away from God. In present-day society, a person is considered ignorant, prejudiced and narrow-minded if they support heterosexual relationships and condemn gay marriages. All these trends are based on so-called freedom and so-called enlightenment, and therefore so-called knowledge and wisdom. So, in this sense, the Genesis writer was right. Much of today's human knowledge is therefore pseudo-knowledge, and we need to be very careful where it leads. There is, however, a small group of very vocal atheist scientists who introduce the supernatural into their science and then preach that it is a delusion and therefore doesn't exist. This delusion is of course based on the absence of evidence. Science has no basis in any of its departments or disciplines without evidence. It advances or it retreats on evidence. Without clear, objective evidence, nothing is proved and therefore doesn't exist until proven. This thinking is then applied to the supernatural, which is perfectly logical but may be fundamentally flawed. As I have already explained, that if there is a supernatural being, he, she or it may be one step ahead and not be interested in providing any evidence. Think of it like this. Objective evidence requires very little effort or human input. It is here, or it is there, for all to see and know about. If there is a supernatural entity, another dimension of space and time, an afterlife, a quantum computer run by super aliens, a saviour of the world, a virtual reality world, or whatever else you want to call it, which makes more sense, making everything obvious so that we don't really need to even think about why we are here, or making everything difficult, so that only a few who make the effort actually find it. The first is easy, the second not so easy. Is this a path to enlightenment or not?